back to the Michigan Football Network for another week of talking football. As always, we appreciate you guys for joining us. Today, we are in the official off season for football, unfortunately. But fortunately for us, this is kind of when things start to ramp up in terms of conversations and different things that we can talk about, because when the season's going on, it's really just what's going on in the games. But when the offseason hits, we're talking about trades and free agency and drafts and all that kind of stuff. But before we get to that, we do have some college football news for Michigan, at least. Not too much from the Michigan State side of things, but Michigan fired their GM, Director of Player Personnel, and Director of On Campus Recruiting. They went ahead and hired a new GM, Dave, and I'm probably not saying this right, but it looks like Pelican to me. But it probably is something more like Peliquin or something like that. But I haven't heard it said yet.
Works for me.
So that's what I'll just run with that. But with that being said, there's a lot to like about this hire. He is known as like the NIL architect or a NIL architect. He kind of understands the ins and the outs of the NIL, and he was a former agent. So that kind of brings a different, side of things to this. Now, he also worked at Notre Dame for quite a long time. He is a he's known to be a good recruiter, but he really is known for like his money management skills. So he's kind of going to be like the COO of Michigan football as well. And one thing to remember, like a college football GM and an NFL GM do not do the same thing. They are not the same job.
Same thing.
Um,
Oh, my bad.
but no, it's
No,
like
they are not.
it's similar in ways. Like the NFL GMs, they have to worry about prices and staff and all that stuff too. But they get to worry about player movement and trades and free agency and the draft and all that stuff. Whereas the Michigan GM is more from a business standpoint. So I mean, similar jobs, but not the exact same. I would say the director of player personnel and the director of recruiting have a little bit more to do with the actual player personnel. I mean, hence the name director of player personnel. They do a little bit more with that kind of stuff. So, with that being said, this is still a big get because in the new NIL era, Michigan was kind of doing it weird with their last GM. They were using like an NFL salary cap, which, I mean, if you think about it, doesn't really make any sense. Why are you having self imposed caps on the salary that doesn't have one? So I think that'll help Michigan out a little bit there. And then with that being said, it just kind of sounds like he is what Michigan needs right now. He apparently is very good with transitioning, and he's apparently very good with having a high floor. With his recruiting classes. So that's going to be good for Michigan. And obviously, we want the high ceiling, of course. But with where we're at right now, I am happy to hear those things. But with that being said, they are still in search of director of player personnel and director of on campus recruiting, which I'm sure will be filled rather shortly. So, with that being said, do you have anything to add before we move on?
The only thing I wanted to touch on, my only note here from Michigan, since obviously, as you mentioned, it's not too much going on at this time of year, is four-star quarterback Peter Bjork decommitted this morning slash yesterday afternoon. And I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on that just because he was a highly touted prospect. Obviously, he wasn't a five-star. I know some people care about stars. Personally, I don't. I've seen two stars and walk-ons come in and dominate at the college level, and I've seen five stars flare out like they were nothing. So, be it that as you may, but I know some people out there take it as standard. So, four-star quarterback Peter Bjork. I don't know what that does in terms of like NIL because I do know he was um, I don't know the number, but I know he was committing here with some funding. Because obviously it's not like a contract. At least I don't think it is. That NIL still new to me in that aspect. But that should, in theory, is what I'm getting at, free up some money to spend elsewhere. Also, with the new coaching staff, as we touched on before, with Coach Winningham, I feel like um, a certain number of recruits will be decommitting. This is not the coach or system or offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator they committed to playing for.
Hmm.
So I know some people stayed, and obviously Michigan does have deep pockets, and um, if it's a money reason, cool. If it's a school reason, cool. But I also understand wanting to try to fit into whatever system that you were told you will play in here. And obviously, with pretty much the entire coaching staff changing, um, things are going to change in terms of recruitment as well. So while it is a slight bummer, because I do know, like I said, he was highly recruited. He's a name I heard of before. It wasn't just one of the, I hate to say randoms, but for lack of a better term, randoms on the roster, because I know he's not the only one that's decommitted. Um, but I know he's one that some fans had some hopes for the future and whatnot. And to those fans, I just want to say it is what it is. Like, just as easy as they go, because I mean, technically he was never here because he's still in high school. It's not really a loss for the team. Like, he was never here. And Winningham, while potentially losing other, I almost said candidates, other recruits, will gain people just as fast that fit what we're about to do or what we're trying to do better. So I would say, yeah, it's a bullet point. I've seen some MSU and OSU fans be like, "Oh, what's happening in Ann Arbor?" But you know, it is what it is. This is not that big of a deal. And yeah, that's all I have to say about Michigan.
Well, yeah, and like you said, I don't think this is a big loss by any means. And also think about it, he was probably going to leave next year anyway. Like that's where we're at with the NIL and with college football. Like, I'm not really that worried, when a guy who wasn't even going to play for us year one leaves, because a lot of the time they're going to leave before they play if they didn't play year one anyway. So, and especially think about it, if Underwood ends up playing really well next year, we wouldn't need him anyway, other than as a backup. And I think at this point you can find a solid backup in the transfer portal or another, 3 or 4 star quarterback that is a high schooler. So, like you mentioned, it's not that big of a deal. We'll find another one, which I kind of don't love that mindset, but that's where we're at with college football.
I'll say,
So,
yeah, unfortunately, that's just where we're at with the NIL.
yeah. And
So
it is what it is. I mean, we've gotten to the point now where it doesn't really seem like they're trying to fix it. So this is just the reality we live in. Um, but with that being said, that is all we have for our college football segment of the day. And with that being said, you know what to do. Link is in the description. If you need any new gear, new things for college football or NFL or basketball, because NBA season is on us, and college basketball as well. March Madness is right around the corner. Link is in the description. Hit up Fanatics. They got all your gear. And with that being said, we will now move on to our NFL portion of the show. So, with that being said, we are going to start with the non-Lion stuff, actually, just because, like, a lot of this is a lot of this news is a little bit hotter than anything we're going to talk about Lions wise. So I figured we'd start off with the fun stuff. Which, number one, the Miami Dolphins are cleaning house, releasing Tyreek Hill among others, Bradley Chubb, which is another big one we all kind of saw coming. But with that being said, I don't know if Tyreek Hill plays another down in the NFL, if I'm being honest with you. Everything that I've seen, from the medical side, he's got to have another surgery, which means he's probably not going to be ready to go until like deep into the season next year. So we might have seen the last of Tyreek Hill, which does kind of suck because he was a great player, but not that great of a person, as we all know from his issues throughout his career. But nonetheless, it would be a big loss on the field for the NFL. And then also, speaking of the Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa has been a name that has been talked about quite a bit in terms of trades. Which, we're not going to get too deep into it right now because the offseason has just started and we'll have time to get into all these different rumors. But that's going to be tough for them to sell, I think. And with where we're at right now, he's making like $46 million a year over the next 2 or 3 seasons. Even if he's traded, it's going to cost the team that cuts him quite a bit of money if they cut him after, or I'm sorry, if they try to cut him after the season. And I don't know if they would do that if they trade for him. So they're kind of in between a rock and a hard place. And the Dolphins might just need to hang on to him for another season. I mean, I keep seeing things about they should cut him right now, but if you think about all the money they're going to have to pay him to cut him right now, why not make him play for you for another year if you're paying him, if you're still going to pay him $40 million either way, you know what I mean? Like, just keep him on the roster and then maybe he'll play a little bit better and you can trade him at the deadline and somebody gets hurt or let's say Rodgers doesn't come back to Pittsburgh or whatever the case, you could see something like that. So what are your thoughts on the Tua Tagovailoa situation?
I've never been much of a Tua fan, to be honest, and between his health, his multiple concussions, his I'll say underperforming. I know he's not terrible, but in my opinion, he's not a $47 million quarterback. On top of his health issues, so I don't see many teams, if any, wanting him. And because I believe you would, um, how do I say? I believe they think he is still a starting quarterback in the league, so I think they're going to ask a fair amount for compensation in the trade, and not like a
Yeah, not multiple
yeah, not
firsts like
tons,
Stafford.
but
Yeah.
more than a team would want to take on a 47 injury prone quarterback, um, in my opinion. And so I don't know really who would even want him at his current price tag and stuff.
You just got
So,
really quiet for some reason.
oh, hello?
Okay, that's better. I don't know. Your mic didn't move while you were talking, but it was like I heard the volume slowly go down
No,
for some
that's
reason.
I'm okay. Sorry. Hopefully you can hear me fine. But yeah, I don't see a team giving up that much for him. And as you mentioned, because I have not looked into his contract or anything, I don't know if there's like dead cap or anything like that on his contract on top of all that.
Oh yeah.
So, like you said, I think they're kind of just stuck with him. Even if they draft a new one, maybe he can try to like mentor him, make it a um, Alex Smith, Mahomes situation. I would use a Green Bay situation, but they were on the bench for a couple years, not just one. Um, so maybe that's where they can go. But as you mentioned, they are cleaning house. They obviously have a new coaching staff and whatnot too. So I kind of feel for Dolphin fans a little bit because this is just start of a complete teardown, and it's going to take a couple of years for them to be. I was gonna say relevant again, but to be honest, I don't know if they were relevant recently anyway. So um, it's going to be a minute,
I
but
mean, the most relevant thing they did was they dropped 70 on the Broncos that one time.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
everything kind of
And
fell off
then
after that,
yeah, and then
unfortunately.
and then what happened? And then
Right.
yeah, so I mean, as you mentioned, I know they cut Hill. I saw on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it, that the other receiver, Waddle, said something
Hmm.
along the lines of like me next or something like that. So he's unhappy with being there. So I'm just really glad I'm not a Dolphins fan. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I hear that. And on the Waddle thing, like he was a name that was brought up a lot during the trade deadline. So I would not be surprised if they traded him. The thing is, they want a lot for him. From what I've heard, they want a first plus. The Giants offered a first and they said no. So like, I mean, if you think about it that way, like they want a lot, which is respectable. He's a good receiver, but if you're at where they're at right now, I think you try to trade him. I would trade him for a second rounder as long as it was, mid to early, and maybe like a second and a fourth or something like that. But with that being said, Tua Tagovailoa, his cap hit is actually $56 million this year. Okay. That is 18.5% of their cap. You ready to hear the dead cap number if they cut him? $99.2 million. Almost $100 million they would have to pay him right now just so he wouldn't play for them. So I think, with where we're at, that's
I didn't
you're
freeze.
gonna hold on. I thought you did, if I'm being honest for a second. I was like, oh, he froze. All right, well.
um,
But yeah,
no, and
that's a lot of money.
that's a ton, and it's gonna sound stupid, but that is all just 1 year, correct? Like it'll
What
be
do you mean?
completely off. Like if they took that 99 million hit, like this time next year, that will be completely gone, right? It's not going to be X amount of million over
Um,
multiple years.
That's a good question, but yes, it is, I think, over multiple years, but I'm not
Okay.
sure exactly how the contract would spread it out or whatever the case, because I know like in the NBA, you do a buyout or whatever, you can spread it over the length of the contract. Um, but I believe that some of it carries over, and I can't tell you
Okay.
an exact number because I'm
Because
not
I'm like,
sure.
obviously they're rebuilding, so I'm like, maybe you do just take that hit, and like you're obviously not competing next year. Like you're not. So I'm like, if you can just take that hit, get it over with, get it off the books, and then move on, so be it. But
So my thing that I wanted to talk about here was also Kyler Murray. Okay, Kyler Murray is
okay.
another quarterback that's likely to get traded. What if the teams just swapped quarterbacks? Okay, because I did a tweet about this and I found out all the financials behind it, which actually let me find that real quick. But with that being said, I don't think it's that crazy to suggest that they might do that, because let's see here. Because both, well, I can't find the tweet, so I don't know why Twitter's not letting me search my own tweets, but you got to fix your shit, Elon Musk.
I've had that issue in the
This
past.
freaking app is pissing me off lately. Anyway, it wouldn't let me retweet our live stream either. It's like, oh, I don't, the retweet button doesn't exist. Okay, whatever. Which I've never had that problem before. But point being, if Tua and Kyler have essentially the same contract right now, right? However, if you traded Tua for Kyler straight up, and I'm not saying that they should do this or would do this, but just a kind of a cool talking point. They both really need a new scenery, right? And I don't know if either the Dolphins or the Cardinals are ready to just throw in the towel and completely rebuild. We'll see. I mean, the Tyreek Hill cut, everyone's like, well, they're throwing in the towel and rebuilding. He wasn't going to play next year. So I think it makes sense for them to cut him regardless, because that frees up $35 million. But point being, if you traded Kyler Murray for Tua Tagovailoa, both teams would save like $60 million in dead cap if they just cut them right afterwards. Like they could legitimately just say, "Hey, you're gonna trade. I'm gonna give you Kyler, and we're gonna eat that dead cap. We're gonna give you Tua. We're gonna eat that dead cap." And then they would say, I don't know. I think their cap hit would be around 40 million for each team, and it's barely any dead cap after that season. And I'm not saying they would trade for him and then cut him the same day. They would play through that season with them, and then either get traded or cut at the end of the year. And both teams would save a ton of money by doing it that way. And I'm not, like I said, I don't think this will happen, but just from a business standpoint, I think that makes a lot of sense. If you can't find a trade partner for either, right? Like if both the Cardinals and the Dolphins just we can't even get a seventh round pick for these guys, which I think someone will give like a fourth round pick or a fifth round pick. Okay. I think that's about it, though. I don't know if any team is desperate enough right now to give up more than that. I could see the Colts. I could see the Jets. I could see the Pittsburgh Steelers, like we talked about. And there's really not that many other teams that are that quarterback needy that would maybe make a move like this because all the other ones are completely rebuilding and will probably tank for a high pick next year. So that's really why I brought up the Tua situation, because I wanted to, propose that deal there. So kind of keeping it on the quarterback standpoint, Malik Willis, okay, is a very hot name right now, and I saw something the other day that said he is going to get $35 million per year. If that happens, that guy should get fired that day. Like genuinely. And it's not even because I hate Malik Willis. The dude's played like 4 games in his NFL career. Like started 4 games in his NFL career.
But Jace, it worked out so well for Matt Flynn.
Good point. That's a great point, actually. And speaking of Seahawks quarterbacks, Sam Darnold is a perfect, example of why I think Malik Willis will definitely not get $35 million, because Sam Darnold just got $35 million per year, and he was 14-3 the year before, and was in legitimately in MVP talks for a while. Okay. Malik Willis had a couple good games, and yeah, he looked really good. I mean, yes, I would sign him if I was like, let's say the Cardinals and they trade Kyler Murray. Go sign Malik Willis. Or if I'm the Colts, I would sign Malik Willis probably over Daniel Jones, because Daniel Jones wants like $40 million a year. And I think Malik Willis is worth a 2-year, $20 million total deal because worst case scenario, it's a 2-year deal. He still makes $10 million per year. But if he sucks, you've just got a high priced backup for a season, and then you cut him. You know what I mean? Like I don't see Malik Willis being a guy that makes someone back up the Brinks truck, just because we just haven't seen enough, man. Like, and that's where I'm at with that. Do you have anything to add before we move on from that one?
No, I agree with everything you said. I remember when people wanted the Lions to take Malik Willis number 2 overall. Um, we got Hutch, so I think that worked out much better in our favor. But um, yeah, like he has played well, and I was a huge critic of him because I did not like what I see in terms of his film when he was a prospect. But I think he looks better as a pro. He looked very good for those games. However, like you mentioned, it was a very small sample size, and I don't know if he can do it for the duration, for the long term and whatnot. So if it is something like 2 years, 20 million total, so 10 a year, I can see a few teams taking
Hmm.
him at that price if he's willing to sign for that price. And I think that would be good for him, even if it was just a 1 year 10 mil. And then if he goes out there, bets on himself, shows out, then he'll earn the 35, 40,
Hmm.
whatever, if he puts up numbers for a whole season. Um, so I'm kind of intrigued. I mean, if we if he is willing to be a backup quarterback, I have slight interest with the Lions, but that would be purely as a backup quarterback
Yeah.
situation. And then I did want to quickly touch on Kyler Murray because I do think, in my opinion, he has more in the tank than Tua left.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
I agree.
like, I know he looked really bad and got replaced and taken over by Jacoby Brissett, but like he doesn't have a super long injury history. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he's a year younger than Tua. I would have to look into that, but I think that he's a year or two, just slightly. So I'm like, if he's younger, a little bit more durable, so less damage on the body, I'd say. I think he just needs a fresh.
Tua is actually younger by just a couple months.
Oh, okay. Well, I stand corrected
Or
on
no, I'm
that. Thank
sorry,
you.
a full year. Well, like 6 months. So
Okay. Well, I'm wrong on that point. Thank you for bringing that up. But I still think he has more in the tank, and then I can see a
mhm.
team potentially like not in, once again not trading for him, not with his current contract, but I can see a team like Cleveland maybe giving him a shot or something like that. They're
Honestly,
constant
sorry. Go ahead.
they're constantly in their like little quarterback carousel, and he offers a little bit more movement and something that the quarterbacks on the roster don't have. And as I tweeted out this afternoon, when talking about a salary cap situation, someone asked why the Browns have um, more cap than they once thought of. All 5 of the Browns' starting offensive linemen are now free agents. So they are literally going to need to either re-sign or replace every single O lineman. So I feel like when you're in that kind of situation, you might want a quarterback with a little bit more movement. I know Shador can move a little. Um, who knows what's going on with Sean Watson? He's technically still there. Um, but like I said, maybe they can throw not a bag, but some money at Malik Willis because obviously he can move too. So who knows what they're gonna do? But at least there are a handful of places I can see them going to. So um, in my opinion, I do think this might be the end of like Tua's. I guess I'll say reign, but I think Kyler Murray and Malik Willis will be names we hear about this upcoming season for sure.
Yeah, and I agree for sure with the Kyler Murray is definitely better than Tua right now, and I definitely think he's got more in the tank because, like you mentioned, the concussions really, really worry me with Tua. But I genuinely do think Kyler Murray will garner trade interest because
Yeah,
the
I
dude
agree.
was a number one overall pick. You know what I mean? He's got like he showed that he can do it in the NFL for years, like multiple seasons back to back to back to back. He was a lot of people were saying he might be an elite quarterback. I mean, I don't know if you remember that. That was quite a
I
while
do not
ago.
remember that far.
But he was
He was
very
solid
good.
for sure.
Which while we're talking about it, let's just look up his stats because that'll add fuel to the fire here. So I mean, obviously as a passer, he never has really been super elite statistically. His best season, 3,900 yards, 67.2 completion percentage, 26 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions
Not
with a
terrible.
94. Not terrible at all with a
Yeah.
94.3 QBR. But I guarantee you he had like another 500 rushing yards and a couple touchdowns as well. So my point is, I feel like Kyler Murray will probably get like a third round pick. Or maybe even a fourth, at worst, I would say. Because yeah, his contract isn't great, but like I mentioned, you can cut him if you're the team that trades for Kyler Murray. You can cut him after the season and only eat like $7 million or something like that in dead cap. So it's not anything you're tied to, right? And I mean, think about it. Like I don't know, maybe let's say the problem is you'd have to be a team like Pittsburgh that needs a quarterback that can win right now. Because I don't like Cleveland, I think is a solid one for Kyler. But the only reason I don't think so is because of Deshaun Watson's contract. I think you got to pick one at that point. But I do like the idea because they are a little bit more ready than, like, say, the Jets. Because I could see the Jets being interested in Kyler. I just don't think they will be because they're tanking for their quarterback next year. So in my opinion, I like you said, I think Kyler Murray is the better player, and I think he will definitely garner more interest. And we might see, I don't know, Tua get benched all year next year or something crazy like that. So we'll see what happens on that front. Um, but with that being said, moving on from quarterbacks, or actually before we move on from quarterbacks, it sounds like Francisco or Fernando, sorry, not your brother, Fernando Mendoza is a lock to be the number one overall pick by the Raiders. They are planning to release Geno Smith, which I think is kind of crazy. I think he'd be worth keeping to be a mentor, but if you can cut Geno and save $20 million and then go sign Jameis Winston for five, I think that's a good decision. Either way, you need someone in there that can mentor Mendoza, but it sounds like he's going to the Raiders at number one, pretty much no matter what. It even sounds like they're unwilling to trade the pick, so they are enamored with him, which I think is, I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this one with Mendoza, but personally, I think he will be a good, not great NFL quarterback. I think he is a more athletic version of Kirk Cousins. I think his arm does nothing special, and call me crazy for it, but every time I watch him, his nothing pops off the screen to me. He is a better athlete than guys like Jared Goff or Kirk Cousins, and I think he has the potential as a passer to get to their point. So I mean, if he gets to Jared Goff's level, I think you could call him a great quarterback. Um, I just don't think he'll ever be quite elite. However, in this draft class, I think that's worth the number one overall pick because, you're going to get a high floor, low ceiling quarterback, which, I mean, high floor, we're talking, he's probably going to be a top 20 quarterback his whole career, which if I told the Raiders, you can use him or take him with the number one overall pick, and I guarantee you he will be at least top 20 his entire career. They would do that without a
Yeah.
doubt because they're getting a decade of solid quarterback play at minimum. So, with that being said, I see a lot of people kind of overplaying him a little bit and underplaying him a little bit. I'm right there in the middle. I think he's going to be a pretty good quarterback. But also a big reason for that is his processing. Like you would think a guy that's known to be a pocket passer and he can move a little bit, he's going to be a good processor. Not really. Like the Hoosiers run more of like an RPO style passing offense. It's not a lot of like you got to make it through your progressions and read a defense and stuff like that. So that worries me just a little bit. But overall, I think it makes sense for the Raiders to make that pick. Do you have anything to add on that before we move on?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say is, for the most part, I agree with you. The only part I laughed at is when you said he is more athletic than Jared Goff. Man, I think me and you are more athletic than Jared Goff, and I'm a big Goff supporter. But obviously, athleticism is not where he shines. Um, but no, I kind of feel like Mendoza's been a lock for number one even before the college football season ended.
Yeah.
I think he does a lot of things well. The one other area I will disagree with you on is I think he is a high floor, high ceiling guy. Now, whether he is going to obviously reach that potential, who knows? If we could draft with hindsight, we would be multi-millionaires in betting and NFL GMs and all that. But Like I see a lot of things I do like in him. When I look at other quarterbacks that went first overall in their draft classes, I like Mendoza better than quite a bit. Like we'll go with Kyler Murray. Like when he was a prospect, I like Mendoza more than Kyler Murray when he was coming out. Um,
Hmm.
personally, but at the same time, he's not like an Andrew Luck prospect or like something like that either. So I am higher on him than some, but I'm not saying he's the next end all be all or anything like that. So so yeah, that's where I'm at with Mendoza.
Yeah, I think I would have to disagree on that pretty heavily on the Kyler thing because I think that might be a little bit of uh, recency bias because man, Kyler Murray when he came out, like he was a nuclear prospect, dude. He had a freaking cannon. He ran a 4.4, 4.3. The only problem was he was 6 foot tall. You know what I mean? Like
I told him to
that
go
was
play
the
baseball.
yeah. And I mean, I guess you're not wrong necessarily, at the end of the day. But I do think Kyler is a little bit different than Tua for this reason. Like Kyler dealt with injuries this year while he was playing, and a lot of people think that's part of the reason why he looked so bad. With the Cardinals having a new head coach, I'm not even 100% sure they move on from him this year. So we'll see how that goes. I wouldn't necessarily go ahead and trade him for a fourth round pick right now. Just because he's shown more than, he's shown enough to get that big contract.
Yeah,
So,
and for
um,
was also drafted, I believe it's ninth overall by the Athletics for baseball.
yeah.
So like he's a hyper athletic dude. So like I know um how do I want to say it? Football is great, like it is, but baseball you put a lot less punishment on your body and you normally have a
hmm
much longer career. So if
hmm
you were drafted a top 10 pick in both leagues, I personally would just choose baseball every time. But that's just me.
No, and that's 100% valid. And honestly, if I were to have children and my son were to have the choice between being drafted top 10 in the NBA or MLB or drafted top 10 in the NFL, I think I'd tell him to play baseball too. I mean, it's just like longevity, like you said, bang up on your body, the head injuries. Like, I would
Especially
rather my son be able to talk to his kids after he retires.
and
Eh, you know,
and not only that, but just like the NFL in general is obviously physical, like no shit. But
Mhm,
like as you mentioned, he's like 5'11", 6 foot. Like especially nowadays, like D linemen were always big, but
mhm.
you got some guys that are 6'6", 350, and I'm like, it's just not quite a good situation if one of those guys are landing on you. Like obviously, I know they made rules where you're not supposed to land with your body weight, but it's still football. It happens. So
Mhm.
yeah, I was one of the guys in the corner saying, man, if I were you, I would stick to baseball. But I mean,
Yeah.
he's
And
made pretty good money. Like I don't think he regrets his decision, but we'll see.
yeah, we'll see in 20 years how he feels about that. But with that being said, our last point before we move on to the Lions specific segment is the Chicago Bears are moving to Indiana and it is happening. It's happening, people. Get ready for it. Now, I will say, they're not relocating to Indiana. Okay, this is not Madden relocate where they change their team name or you want to be the Indiana Mountaineers or whatever the fuck they give you on there. But no, they're going to be the Chicago Bears still. They're just going to have their stadium in Indiana. I mean, we've seen this many times before, okay? With like the Giants and the Jets, they play in New Jersey. Like, and that's because New York City, you can't have a stadium that size there because that just doesn't work with their infrastructure. So they made their stadium in New Jersey. I know, like you mentioned on Twitter, the Pistons played in Auburn Hills for a while. The Lions played in Pontiac for a while. It's just one of those things. Like, obviously, those are different cities in the same state, but it's not like they're moving to the other side of the country. It's just like 10 miles away from where they are now. So I don't think it's that crazy because it makes sense, financially and with, Indiana being more willing to help pay for it. So I think a lot of people are overblowing it a little bit in terms of, oh, it's going to be the Indiana Grizzlies or something. Like, no, it's going to be the Chicago Bears still. Nothing's changing on that standpoint. And then, last but not least, speaking of Indiana, we have the NFL Combine coming up next week, which I will be in attendance as always. I've gone to the last, I think, three in a row. Um, excuse me. I always have a lot of fun. It's a good time, being able to see like Anthony Richardson run a 4.4 at his size or Xavier Worthy break the 40 record. But I will be there to also watch Lions prospects, which we will talk about a lot more as the offseason winds down, or ramps up, I should say, and as the draft gets closer. But with that being said, now with the Detroit Lions specific stuff, I have some good news for you. Mike Kafka is staying in Detroit. A lot of people, us, were worried that Mike Kafka was going to take that OC job, and they ended up going elsewhere. So that's good news. And with that being said, Rod Wood also retired, I think, yesterday. So they're going to be needing a new president, which Mike Disner, I think, is the obvious choice here. I think every Lions fan would agree with that. Also, especially because he has been getting interviews for different, higher up roles than we have him at right now. So essentially, if we want to keep him, you got to promote him, and I think he deserves it at this point. So, with that being said, we will now talk a little bit about Lions free agents that we should bring back or that we shouldn't bring back. And there is a lot. Well, I don't know if there's a lot that I would like to bring back, but there is a lot of Lions free agents. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and start with the names we would like to not see back because I think that list might be a little bit shorter, because there's going to be a lot of guys on here that we don't want to, or I'm sorry, that we do want to see back. So, with that being said, let me find a good list here because for some reason Google does not want to give me a list of players. They just want to give me articles talking about it.
I got a list of 29 names here if you want it.
Yeah, yep, I just found it too.
Okay.
So we got DJ Reader, Alex Anzalone, Khalif Raymond, Amik Robertson, Levi Onwuzurike, which actually he's not going to be a free agent as we know. Roy Lopez, Marcus Davenport, Josh Pascal, also not going to be a free agent. Grant Stewart, Daniel Thomas, Al-Qadim Muhammad, Avante Maddox, Kayode Awosika, Kyle Allen, Jalen Mills, Arthur Mullet, Zach Cunningham, Ezekiel Turner, Anthony Ferkser, Tristan Colon, Rock Yasin, Tom Kennedy, Shane Zostra, Jamarco Jones, Tyra Sweet, Trevor, excuse me, Trevor Nowaski, Jake Bates, Malcolm Rodriguez, and DiCaprio Boodle. Okay, now just to start the top of the list, DJ Reader, see ya. Like, I mean, unless you come back for like $5 million, I'm good, man. And I think he's good too. I think that's where we're at. We'll move on. That's why we drafted Tyleik Williams in the first place. And I think you agree with me there. So,
100%.
With that being said, Alex Anzalone, I'm kind of 50-50 on. I would like to bring him back if the money's right because the Lions actually do have a need at linebacker because Malcolm Rodriguez is also a free agent. And even if we bring him back, I still think we need a starter level linebacker, man. And last week on the show, you with our new Be a GM mode, you decided to get Devin Lloyd from Jacksonville,
Yep.
which would be awesome. I don't see it happening mainly just for the money, but that's kind of
Fair.
the thought process that I'm at as well, where we do need another actual stud linebacker. Like I love
Absolutely.
Derek Barnes, he's a great player, but I think he's more of a role player linebacker than a true like starting will. And I don't know if Rodriguez is a true starting will either. So I would love to bring Anzalone back. But I understand if we don't because he's old and the money. But I do think he had a good season last year. So, any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, it's if you were watching the show with us last year, you heard me say it 1,000 times in the off season. For the right price, for the right price, I would bring him back. But it seems, at least on the surface, obviously, I'm not privy to contract negotiations, talks, and all that. It seems like he still wants to get paid and not take like a team-friendly deal or anything like that. So, like, if he's going at market price or above, because this is probably going to be his last contract, um, unfortunately, that's just not lining up with what we have available in cap space and whatnot, with the amount of
Hmm.
people that we still need to re-sign, extend, et cetera, et cetera. So, um, yeah, unless he's going to take, I'd even say a pay cut from what he's making now.
Hmm.
I just don't see it in the cards for the Lions.
Yeah, and I would agree there for sure. And then Khalif Raymond, that's another one I'm kind of 50-50 on for the right price, and I think we'd both agree on that. Amik
Yeah, that's
Robertson,
why.
again. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, on the Raymond thing, that's why last week on the show, for the Stick the Model, I gave us Shaheed from Seattle to
Hmm.
kind of replace him. That way we can get a special teams guy and then a slightly better caliber receiver. But
Hmm.
when it comes to Raymond himself, as you mentioned, I'm like maybe if he's willing to take a cheaper deal or something. But
Yeah,
um, if we end up going in a different direction there, I'm not gonna woo the day we let him go.
right. And then Amik Robertson is another one that I would like to bring back, I would say, but for the right price, I'm not going to press that. Roy Lopez, though, I think for my money is probably the one that I want back the most,
Oh,
because he really, really played well. And I do feel like he was probably our unsung hero on defense last year. And I don't know if you guys remember, if you guys watched the show back at this point, but I called that, man. I watched his
you
film,
did.
and it was like so clear to me that he was going to make a difference for us. Just everything he did was he did everything well, and actually had a high upside as well, in which he showed this year. So I would love to bring him back. He might have priced himself out of Detroit though. Spot Track says he's going to get 6.5 million. I think he'll get more than that because that's what we gave him the last contract. So I think he'll get closer to 8, which I don't think it would be crazy to pay him 2 years, 16 million. But I just don't know if we have the money in the cards. So
I'd give him that if that's what he's asking for. Yeah, he and you called it. I'll obviously give you your flowers. And he was a guy that was kind of unknown to me.
mhm.
It's not like I watched a lot of Arizona Cardinals, but he came in and in limited plays because obviously he was used as a rotational guy. He wowed me at times, so he is someone I would really like to have back. Um, it does shock me a little bit just to hear you say the guy you might want back the most, because there's one other name on this list that I thought would be higher, but it might be a cost thing too. So um, I'll let you
And
talk
I
about
think
that
I know
player when we get to it.
exactly. I think I know exactly who you're talking about, which we can talk about him next. Al Qadim Muhammad,
Yeah,
I'm
it's him.
assuming.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good. I think I'm totally fine. I'm good. I don't want him back
Oh,
personally. Like I think he's gonna ask for too much money for the type of player he is. Like, yeah, dude, he had 11 sacks, but let's be real. He was missing for like 8 weeks of the season, just completely missing. And it was
he
to the
was.
point where we were playing frickin' Tyrus Wheat over him. And no disrespect to you, Tyrus Wheat, but before you were on the Lions, I don't think many people had heard of you. And that's not a dig, that's just a fact, and that's because he was more of a practice squad player. And the fact that you're a practice squad player who's now taking this guy's job for weeks on end, I just don't love that. And then he'd come in and have 3 sacks against the Cowboys or whatever it was, and then he looks great, and it's like, but it's really because of Ali McNeil, DJ Reader, Tyleek Williams, and Aiden Hutchinson more than it is Al Qadim Muhammad. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but for the money he's going to get, I just don't think we should do it, especially
Well,
considering his age.
what do you think he will get money wise?
At least 10 million a year.
I say 10. I feel like is my limit. We gave 10 to Davenport the first year, so I'm like
Yeah.
I'm at least willing to give him 10. But if he's asking for, I'll say like 15. Like no for that price. But
Yeah, and he's going to try to get paid because he's never been paid before, and more respect, or do I would love to see him get paid, just not by us. For some reason,
fair
I
enough.
feel like he's going to go to a team like the Colts for like $17 million.
Oh, then I'll help him pack his bag.
Right.
Sure.
Um, I'll buy you your plane ticket, brother.
And for
No,
what it's worth, Tyrus Wheat is also a free agent.
yes, he is. Which, with that being said, Marcus Davenport, I think we can both agree, whatever. If we bring him back, it better be for like $1 million. I don't think he played that bad last year. It's just he wasn't that great. And with the injuries and everything like that, I'm just not that worried about it. Grant Stewart, again, take it or leave it. He's a special teams player, doesn't really, make that big of a difference. I think for culture wise, he's probably good to have. But depends on the money. Daniel Thomas, again, take it or leave it. He was depth. He did okay in the times that we asked him to play. But and then Avonte Maddox, I would like to bring back. He's got a lot of versatility. He showed a lot in the small moments that he played. And then like Coyote Awosika, Kyle Allen, Jalen Mills, Arthur Mollett, Zach Cunningham, Ezekiel Turner, Anthony Firkser, Tristan Colin, Tom Kennedy, I'd like to have back just because. But Shane Shilstra, Jamarco Jones, Tyler Sweet, Trevor Nowaski, DiCaprio Boodle, either way, man. If they're going to bring him back for a very small contract, I just am not that worried about those guys leaving or staying, if I'm being honest with
Yeah,
you.
the only one you've mentioned there that I would actually want back is Cunningham. Obviously, it will be as like a backup rotational guy, but prior to his injury, he was playing pretty well in my opinion. And we do need a linebacker. Once again, not saying
Hmm.
he's the answer to linebacker, but I would like to bring him back on a similar short-term deal like we had. And then the only other guy of that whole list that I wanted to mention is Tom Kennedy.
Hmm.
Whether we want him back or not, he will be back. I don't know if he owns partial shares of the Lions or what, but we might name the practice squad when he retires the Tom Kennedy practice squad because
We
he is
should.
always bouncing around there. So
Hmm.
um, we always cut him off the 90 man every single year from the preseason cut down rosters. And I always see people every single year be like, "Oh, I thought he played well," and then he always signs with the practice squad every single time. He keeps coming back, so he'll be hovering around here somewhere.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And then Rocky Sin, I would love to bring back. It on Spot Track, he's set to only get 1.5 million. I do think he'll get a little bit more than that, but if it's less than like five, I think I bring him back because I think he played well for us. He's still relatively young. I think he's 27, or no, I'm sorry, 29. Damn, I thought he was younger than that. But still, I mean, he played well for us, and it's probably going to be another 1 year deal either way, and that's just depth. So I would not be mad if we brought him back. And then Rodriguez and Jake Bates are two big ones that we definitely should bring back, in my opinion. I would say Lopez, Rodriguez, and Bates are really the only ones that I'm like, we have to bring those guys back. And, a lot of it, is based on money too. Like if Rodriguez wants too much, we'll let him walk. But I do like the idea of keeping our young, linebacker core together. So, with that being said, do you have anything to add on that before we move on?
No, I agree with all three names you said there.
All right. So, with that being said, we will now get into a little bit more of a fun conversation here. So, started off, Wyatt Teller is a name that we have talked about throughout the trade deadline or whatever that the Lions should have went out and traded for, which he will be hitting the open market, and he put out an Instagram post saying he will not be returning to Cleveland. So Lions, you better go after him because he's not going to be that expensive. It's going to be a 1 year deal, kind of like Kevin Zeitler, and he can play left guard or right guard. And I think this would kind of solidify the offensive line. I think you could get him for 1 year, $8 million deal, if that. You might even be able to get him for less than that. So I do this deal 10 out of 10 times, just because I think he's really what we're not the missing piece of the O line, but a missing piece of the O line. Because if you add him, now you can shuffle guys around even more. So I really love the idea of adding him. And then, do you got anything to add on that one?
On Teller,
Yes.
the only thing I have really on that is one thing I did not realize. I knew he played right guard, but kind of like Zeitler, he's almost a right guard exclusive. So if we do sign Teller, then I think that would have to be accompanied by moving Ratledge over to either left guard or center. I know we've talked quite a bit about the potential move to center. That was a big talking point last offseason, but it kind of died out, other than just fans reminiscing about the story when it was talked about. I haven't heard too much of it since then. Um, but I think it would be asking a lot of Teller to try to kind of change positions this late in his career. But he is a three-time Pro Bowler, and he's someone I would like to have, obviously, in the locker room. And if we were going to move Ratledge over to center anyways, then I think it's perfect, to be honest.
So, okay. With that being said, I don't know if I agree that he is a right guard exclusive because he has been a right guard for most of his NFL career, but he played majority of his rookie snaps at left guard. So I think he can do it. But again, I think like you mentioned, I think he is probably better at right guard. But I don't know if we do this, we have to move Ratledge because I don't know if Ratledge is the center of the future, and if he's not, I think you keep him at right guard just because you don't want to move a young guy like that. But I don't know. We'll see what happens because I do think Teller is better off at the right side. So it all just kind of depends on what we're going to move around there. So with that being said, moving on to our last point of the conversation here. Max Crosby, okay, has been a name that I keep hearing on Twitter and on ESPN and on all these things. And I'll tell you right now, the Detroit Lions should not trade for Max Crosby, okay? And there's a plethora of reasons why. But I'll just give you three, okay? Number one, financials. Okay, we all know the Lions are up against the cap this year, but as we've talked about on this show multiple times, they can clear up almost $100 million if they restructure a lot of their guys. However, restructuring doesn't mean the money just goes away. It means
Wait, what?
you it means the money gets essentially kicked down the road. They move the money to the next year and the next year and the next year. They essentially, you know, put the bonus on every year of their contract. So like let's say Jared Goff clears up $40 million, well that's going to add $10 million to the next 4 years of his contract. So if we do that with him, McNeil, Sewell, Amon Ra, those guys are all going to make like $10 million extra the next 4 years. So
Yeah,
we
but then the
also
cap goes up, and the cap's a myth. And I mean, come
right, right.
on.
I mean, you're not wrong on that standpoint, but if we're adding a guy like Max Crosby who's making almost $40 million a year, when we also have to sign Sam Laporta and Brian Branch and Jameer Gibbs and all these guys that we're gonna Jack Campbell is another one. We're gonna have to re-sign all these guys, and they're all studs. So it's not like we're gonna be able to give them $8 million and whatever. No, these are all guys that are gonna probably get $20 million a year each. So we need to start thinking that way. And also think about the fact that they want at least 2 first round picks for him, if not 2 first round picks and a player. And I keep hearing, well, we could trade 2 first round picks and Aleem McNeil. Okay, why the fuck would we do that? Be realistic. Like, Aleem McNeil is a damn good player. There's a reason we paid him. Yeah, he didn't play that well last year. He's coming off a torn ACL and was playing out of position. However, I know we need an edge rusher, and I know, everybody wants the big name. But I don't know, James, if you remember, but the last two trade deadlines, there was this certain name that Lions fans just kept bringing up. He played in Cincinnati, edge
Max
rusher
Crosby.
Trey
Oh,
Trey Hendrickson, right?
yes.
And I don't understand why people, it seems they forget he's a free agent.
Well, why would you want to sign Trey Hendrickson for just money when you can trade for Crosby and give away picks?
Well, and my favorite thing on top of that is people are like, "Well, Max Crosby's younger and he's better," and it's like, yeah, but is he 2 first round picks and an extra $10 million per year younger and better? Probably
And coming
not,
off
if
an
I'm being
injury?
honest. And coming off an injury. So I love Max Crosby. I wanted us to draft him. I don't know why we didn't personally. I thought he was going to be a stud watching his film, and he went in like the fourth or fifth round. So
He went through Michigan.
obviously, yeah. And obviously, a lot of other NFL teams passed on him too. But point being, why would we give up picks and pay him almost 40 million over the next 3 seasons when we could just go sign Trey Hendrickson on a 1 or 2 year deal with $30 million per year? And I don't even know if it'll take that much. I know he wants to get paid. I know all that. But if you're going from a team like Cincinnati to a team like Detroit in terms of winning, I think you're going to be a little bit more willing to take a pay cut. And I think we can actually afford that. Now, do I think that'll happen? No, probably not, because we do have bigger needs than edge rusher right now. And I think if we were going to go pay somebody, hey, I know the face you made, but if you're going to go pay somebody $28 million a year, it better be Tyler Linderbaum.
No, I can
That's where
just
I'm
see it
at.
now. As soon as you say we have bigger needs than defensive end, and be like, and half the viewers are gone. And
Well,
Lions
look,
fans love to just harp on D end. So
but I mean, we were those guys too all off season last year. I think we all agreed that we needed a defensive end and we didn't go get one, and we shot ourselves in the foot. I just don't think that that means we need to go get Trey Hendrickson. Like, like I said, if
Crosby,
we what
you said you don't think we need to go get Trey Hendrickson.
or Crosby, I don't think we need
Oh,
to get
okay, my
either
bad.
of them. Yeah, like I'm saying, like I would rather have Hendrickson, but I don't really want either of them because
Ooh.
of money. Now if the Lions signed one of them or traded for Crosby, I would be ecstatic because of how good those players are. But like I said, if you're gonna go sign somebody for $28 million a year, it better be Tyler frickin' Linderbaum because he's 26 years old and he'll make more of a difference, in my opinion, to our offense than maybe a guy like Trey Hendrickson would to our defense, especially considering you'll probably save $5 million a year by getting that interior O lineman. And then you can just draft an edge rusher like we should have done fucking years ago. It's like I've been saying this for so long, okay? I would not be upset, right, if we signed Tyler Linderbaum and then drafted an edge in the first round. I think I would be upset if we signed Trey Hendrickson and then drafted a center in the first round, though.
Yeah, but the last time we drafted a center in the first round, Frank Ragnow, it kind of worked out.
It did, but there ain't not a single damn Frank Ragnow in this draft, unfortunately. Like I think we would be I think if we're gonna go the draft route for a center, we would be able to find one in the third round, which I know we don't have a third round pick. Okay, I'm gonna beat you to that one. But but I think in terms of value, I think we could get a starter in the third round. So we could trade up, we could trade back, whatever the case may be. But that's another thing. I wouldn't be that surprised if the Lions traded back in this NFL draft because there's not a lot of top tier talent. Now, if there's a guy available, I think they'll stick and pick, but we'll just see how the board falls. But with that being said, do you have anything to add on the Crosby Hendrickson situation?
I do want Hendrickson. I don't think we'll get him, but I do want Hendrickson.
Hmm.
I think anything other than um like a Madden or AI draw up of Crosby in a Lions uniform, anything further than that is just silly.
Hmm.
Between like you said, the prices and if you sit down and look at what this team needs in terms of not just talent, but just how many holes we have. I counted 7. I mean, obviously you can pause the video or just wait until the our podcast is over and do the math yourself. But I counted 7. I'm not trading away 2 first round picks and a player because that would create. Let's just say because I know the 2 first and McNeil is a commonly floated one around. I've also seen 2 first and JMO, which I just laugh and scoff at personally.
That one's even
But
worse.
yeah, I agree. And in those situations, not only are you giving up the 2 first, but I'm like, okay, you're creating a hole at receiver. I know we got Tesla, but they're 2 different styles. Those are 2 different things. Or you're creating a hole at D tackle. So okay, cool. You fill your need for a DN, but now you have a need for a D tackle because Reader's most likely not coming back. So without Reader and McNeil, Williams is only one guy. So it's like now you have less draft capital, less cap space, and another hole. So it just no. The Crosby stuff needs to end. Hendrickson, just here's your check, come play for us. Like
Hmm.
I'm for that,
Yeah.
and I hope it happens. But um, yeah, I understand he went to Eastern Michigan. I understand he's from Michigan, uh, born and raised, whatever. It's just a story. It's a better story than logistics.
Hmm.
So I am, to be honest, starting to get a little annoyed with how much of the Crosby stuff I'm seeing. And I was a guy in the past who wanted Crosby,
Hmm.
but he got hurt. He's coming off an injury. He just got paid. Personally, I'm slightly, and I'll keep this short because I know I can ramble. I'm slightly annoyed with Crosby himself because he said last offseason when he signed his super mega 5-year contract and rose the price for Hutchinson that he wanted to be with the Raiders. I almost called him Oakland. He wanted to play for the Raiders, and that's why he signed an extension there. And yet now he wants out, and it's just like if we do trade for him and we lose once again all the cap, all the picks and all that, if we're not good because we didn't fill the holes, is he going to just demand a trade from us? Like,
Hmm.
I'm just so out on Crosby, personally.
Yeah, and I think a couple years ago, 2, 3 years ago, I would say let's trade two
Oh,
first-round picks
absolutely.
for him, especially if you think about when we had Ragnow and Zeitler on the O line and we didn't really have many holes. It was like, yeah, we can afford it, and money and in picks and in everything, and it just made too much sense. Now, I agree with you, Trey Hendrickson. If we're gonna go that route, which again, I know I said I don't want him. That doesn't mean I'm like against the idea. I just mean like I would prefer the Linderbaum way because I think Hendrickson is only a 2 year player. And while he's a great player and an impact player, I just think we have an offensive line need that's a little more, especially considering we can probably get a edge rusher in the first round that will start right away for us. So,
Maybe Falk
um,
from Auburn.
yeah, and honestly, I think we can get him in a second round, but we'll see.
Oh,
Um, we'll see on that. But just based on some things I've been seeing about him recently, um,
I will say
I
there is
am
a. Sorry, go ahead.
good. I was just going to say I am excited to see how the draft is going to play out.
Oh, absolutely. And there is a handful of other guys I have. I'll just say potential interest. Obviously, free agency isn't quite here yet. I saw, I don't want to say link to Detroit, but I saw fans link Joey Bosa to us, which,
Hmm.
eh, but I see a lot of the like mocks and whatnot are only giving him like 12 million. So I guess if it's gonna be that cheap, maybe. But a name I've mentioned in the past, Khalil Mack, is a free agent. Like obviously he's not quite what he used to be, but he could be a stopgap guy.
Hmm.
So it's not Trey Hendrickson or I should say Trey Hendrickson or Crosby or bust. There's the
Hmm.
draft. There's other free agents. There's quite a few ways we can go about this.
Yeah, for sure. And, speaking of different ways to go about this, you can go about it your own way on the brand new Be a GM on the brand new website, sticktothemodel.com, who we are now partnered with. Which you can use our code MFN2026 and receive 10% off your first order. And click our link in the description, and that will help us out as well. With that being said, it is a very cool tool that you can use to kind of go through all these different scenarios, mock drafts, and things, go through an entire off season, and kind of do on your own what we just talked about. So it's a really cool tool, and it's brand new. So there are a little bit of issues, but I'm telling you right now, it's probably the best one on the market. Period. And that's not because we're
Absolutely.
partnered. I said that last week before we even made this deal. So I do really really love it.
Yeah, when you
And
said that we were partnering with them, I was literally giddy because I'm like, we had a whole episode using their I don't even know what to call it, model
mhm.
and whatnot, and I was over the moon because, as you mentioned, there's a couple of things to work out, but they're still relatively new, and so far it's still fantastic. And for anyone else out there potentially wondering, that is literally what I have up on my second monitor, and that's how I know that Bosa and Mac are free agents. I am in the free agency part of that, went to Edge, and it shows me every free agent Edge, so you can make a list of your wants. There's also, Arden Key, Clavion Chason, Cutie Pay. I'm like, there's still more guys that can be even mentioned. AJ and Paneza from the Buffalo Bills is a free agent. So once again, there's some names out there. So Kyle Van Noy, I hate to say it, but holy smokes, he is 35 now.
Mhm.
Where does the time go, man? Okay, sorry, didn't go too far off track there, but yeah, it is a great tool, and it's fun to just play around with that. So yeah, even before we were partnered with them, I found this to be quite good. So do check it out, anyone out there. It is a wealth of knowledge you can get on there.
Yeah, 100%. And with that being said, that is all we have today for today's show. Once again, you can find us back here next week, Wednesday at 6 p.m., every Wednesday at 6 p.m. I know today's Thursday, but sometimes, the schedule changes, and that's okay. But with that being said, like I said before, we appreciate you guys for watching. You can find me at JSoSweet, James at Gullet_James, and both of us at MIFB Network and MichiganFootballNetwork.com. Once again, thanks for watching, and we'll